down.
Did it go pretty well at the stand this year, Thursday?
Back and forth,
Good.
back and forth.
Is that a better spot for y'all?
Right, instead of like, okay, guys, yeah.
Typically ponds like that over.
It always,
I don't got just a bunch of brand new small fish.
after,
That's gonna be hard telling them. That land just got sold.
Hey Carson, how are you?
Good, thanks for coming right.
Oh yeah, it was good. It was definitely worthwhile.
I'm gonna be out of town Thursday, I'll probably come the following week though. I should try to get by there.
He's got it turned in already.
Oh, I don't know why he showed up in your place.
He's just an idiot.
Not to me.
Yeah, that would be a,
Oh, is this who I think it is?
that would be.
Are we talking about,
Try to call him, thank God. I
starting
never
with
got
D?
him.
Hey Bill, are you gonna chair this?
I can't, whatever you want.
Yeah, because I was gonna, so one of us has to leave, basically.
Oh, my house too.
I did, and I got these. $4 for these, right with that one for a second.
Thank you, my friend.
Was that the guy who
Not bad.
called, showed up at your house?
Yeah. It came to your
You were nicer than I was.
Did you? Yeah.
I wouldn't like that. No, I didn't like that.
21588.
I'm sorry, Bill.
I got it.
This Laura's not recording. She was gonna think.
trust is being recorded somewhere.
It's on the video.
I wear red on.
How are things down by you, Owen?
I'm dealing with that.
I just give it District 1 supervisor hell for putting signs in the wrong district.
Yeah. Hostile takeover. I've had a couple people ask me at the door.
They can vote for me. I can peel off votes from District 2.
It's okay. You're not involved in that. You know?
I don't mind.
It happens in big cities all the time.
You know,
In Louisiana, you can die and keep voting.
you know, District 1 used to own the it was a Powhatan north of 60. District 2 had the whole route.
We're going to call the joint workshop between the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission to order. Ms. Carmack, will you lead us in the pledge? And I'll lead us in invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the
flag
flag
of the United States, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please bow your heads. Dear Lord, thank you for such a beautiful day in Powhatan. Please be with us as we seek to do the people's business. Thanks for all you do. Amen. Do we have any requests? I have one request to amend the agenda that's been presented. We deferred something last night and moved it to tonight's meeting. So we're going to add as item 6A, the resolution R 2015-88, which is an appropriation of money that we needed to handle tonight. Adding that as item 6A.
You want to just go ahead and get it done?
I think it's what we discussed last night.
I'll second that.
You'll second the motion? All in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman,
Motion passes 4-0.
I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. At this time, we'll have our first public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward at this time. Well, typically, yes, if you'd like to make a comment, you can, because we don't have a public hearing or anything on it, so you could come speak now, you can wait and speak it. We have two public comment periods, so whatever you feel comfortable with.
Laura Graham, 3115 Jude's Ferry Road. I'm here to request that as you update the comprehensive plan, that you include night sky as one of the natural resources of Powhatan that we want to preserve and protect. Several years ago, I was one of the original people on the Citizens Working Group working to create the comprehensive plan, and I came to every meeting, and I spent the same time everybody else did. I did have an agenda, which was to have a lighting ordinance passed, which had not been passed at that time, and I was told the first thing to do was to get a statement on the comprehensive plan. I did work very hard on that. When the last draft was given to me, along with everybody else, there was statement on there saying that night sky is a natural resource that we want to protect. Somehow, before the final draft was made, that was deleted. I don't know why. People I've asked, nobody seems to know. But I really want it back on there. I realize that we do have a very good lighting ordinance now, which I do thank all of you, but just because we have a lighting ordinance doesn't mean that it's easy to enforce. It takes a lot of work, and a lot of that is education, and therefore I think wherever possible we need a statement showing that we do believe in this. People look it up, they can see. If there's any questions, and they will know that at least there's people they can go to with the answers. So that's my request for tonight, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Graham, and thank you for the help you've provided us in the years past. Seeing no one else, will close the public comment period. At this time, we'll move on to item 6A, the resolution R 2015-88. Pal, you going to handle this?
This item was brought forward to the board last evening, and the board deferred action until this evening. We went back and replaced the funding coming from the bus garage for $215,000 with funding coming from the capital maintenance reserve. We've also presented for you in your packet tonight information on the capital maintenance reserve with updated estimate amounts. They are estimated because they are unaudited. So immediately following the resolution, which would be on page 3 of your packet, I apologize, they're not page numbered, but immediately following the resolution, it says Powhatan County fund balance is unaudited, and it's estimated that the fund balance for the general fund will be $14.6 million. If you go to page 4, it's the general fund balance and capital maintenance reserve, and it shows you that to maintain the fund balance at 15%, it's in the middle of the page. It's $10.9 million. We have 14.6, so fund balance in excess of 15% is $3.5 million. We have some non-spendable fund balance, and we have some carryovers going from 15 to 16 that we'll be bringing forward to the board. That leaves a capital maintenance reserve fund of $2.9 million. So if you go to page 5, where it says Powhatan County General Fund Capital Maintenance Reserve, which is the list of the balances in the capital maintenance reserve since the creation of the reserve on June 30th of 2013. And if you go down to the third number up from the bottom, we estimate that same number that we showed you on the previous page, that we should be able to have $2.9 million in fund balance. The board has, in capital maintenance reserve. The last 2 items are the 2 resolutions that the board has already adopted for FY16 to use capital maintenance reserve to fund some of the capital projects in the capital improvement program and some of the capital projects in the other capital. That brings the balance down to $567,000. So we would be requesting tonight that you use $215,000 of that $567,816 balance in the capital maintenance reserve at 8/31 of 15. Again, these are estimates. They're based on unaudited numbers. We also wanted to point out the next page is the Powhatan County CIP for the school projects. And if you look down, the second grouping of information says project estimates, and it's divided out by category: A&E, land acquisition, contractors, fees, construction, purchase, and new furnishings and equipment. And in the first line under A&E, you see in FY16 the $1,131,000 that was budgeted and appropriated for the junior high school. In FY15, immediately to the left, that $500,000 is the bus garage, but the remaining number in FY17 is A&E for the junior high school. So the total amount that you see in the 5-year CIP total, the $4,239,000, is the total amount of the A&E and project management that the county has in the CIP for this project. And as I said last evening, we just don't have the split correct between what is design and what is contract management. On the very last page of the handout is what we received from the schools for the junior high school. And again, if you look at the very first line, they put in the same line item, A&E fees, testing, and construction support. And they have a 5-year total of $4,239,000. So the two documents are in agreement for the total A&E cost. We just don't have the amount budgeted in FY16 that we need for the design. We need to budget an additional $335,120 for the design, bringing the design costs up to $1.4 million. The schools had estimated they'd be $1.6 million. So I stand ready to answer any questions that you may have.
But tonight, we're dealing with 215 because we did the 95 from the cash proffers last night, correct?
I'm sorry, say that again?
So we're doing 215 because we captured 95 of that last night in the...
No, you're doing the, last night you rescinded your vote.
Rescinded both of them, okay, so
You rescinded both, you rescinded the entire resolution, so the resolution is coming back to you brand new, none of the action that you took last night. And the proffers are back up to $120,000.
Okay.
We did not reduce the proffers down to a lower amount. The reason we did not do that is the proffers are specifically for schools. Capital maintenance reserve can be used on any project, and if we don't want to tie up capital maintenance reserves on the schools if we have another funding source dedicated to schools. So the proffers are back at the 120, and from capital maintenance reserve is a 215 for a total of 335, 120. So,
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Thank you. Any
So
other
I got a
questions?
question.
Go ahead, Mr. Williams.
Pat, with the remaining amount we've got in the capital maintenance reserve fund, is that sufficient to cover things that you maybe had on the radar that might be coming up this year that we didn't have, documented, but you had, an inclination that we might need to do something with that money?
the amount remaining in the capital maintenance reserve is not enough to fund the FY17 CIP that we need to take from pay-as-you-go, but we did know that, and that was presented to the board when we presented it to you at the budget time. I have over on the table next to Ed the information that we presented to you at the budget time. When you were reviewing the CIP, we gave to you the estimates of what would be remaining in the capital maintenance reserve, and at that time, after you budgeted and appropriated the CIP and the other capital, it was estimated there would be $127,000 left in capital maintenance reserve. So we have fared better in FY15 than we were estimating. So we are actually going to end up with $352,000 in capital maintenance reserve instead of the $127,000 that we originally had in there.
But you're saying we're going to be short on FY17?
Yes, and we've known that all along. That, as I said, we've known that prior to the adoption of the CIP.
And where is it anticipated this money is going to come from, the shortfall?
We have not yet identified a funding source for anything in FY17 because FY17 is not yet approved projects by the Board of Supervisors or the school
But you-
board.
you would-
They're not yet approved projects.
Okay, I agree, but you
Right.
would agree we need to have that on the radar and be thinking about it.
We are.
Okay.
Definitely. They're on the radar by the fact that they are in the FY17 CIP column. So-
But the fact that we don't have enough money right now, that's my point.
Right.
We did know that. I remember very clearly, and that's why we only budgeted and appropriated the stuff in 16. We had, the other items were basically placeholders that we all knew that we needed to consider the funding source.
I can give you, I have it on the table, and we can pass out to you the page that came from the budget that we did show you that information. Would you like us to do that now? We can do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I might as well get it now.
And I apologize, I think I said 127, and it's 167, 408.
Get them all? Y'all can have them.
Share.
And the change from what you were presented on April 22nd to what we're presenting to you this evening, there's two changes. The first change is that on April 20th, you voted, oh, I apologize, the voting machines are in there. So there's only one difference, and that is at year end, on April 22nd, we were estimating that we would put in $628,000, and the end of FY15, we're now estimating it'll be $1.1 million at the end of FY15. Again, that's an unaudited number, it's an estimate. But we knew that we would only have, where we were planning on only having $167,000 in capital maintenance reserve at the time that we presented it to you on April 22nd.
And the balance today is what now, Pat, after we decrement?
Currently, the balance is at the bottom of the page. It's on the handout. It's $567.
Right, 816.
And if you take out the $215, that means it's approximately $352,000.
352. So that would be the actual balance, the projected balance then.
Projected, estimated, yes.
Right. 352.
Any other questions, Dave? Okay. Larry?
No, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve Resolution R 2015-88 as presented here in this document.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
David will second it. We have a motion and a second. Do you want to poll us, Pat?
Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Nordvig?
Aye.
Mr. Hodge is absent. Mr. Melton?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
Gentlemen, before we go any further, Barry asked me to share with y'all that he could not be here tonight. He's got that federal case down in Norfolk, so he's literally working around the clock on that. So until he gets that case behind him, you know, he's going to be put in situations like this where, you know, he might not always be able to attend, but he sends his request.
Thanks for letting us know that. I know he's been wrapped up in that for quite a while.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to discussion item, which is the process for review update 2010 long-range planning comprehensive plan. We're about 20 minutes later than we had hoped to be, but let's move on. March?
We can be done in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Dinner's waiting. I handed out to you at the beginning of the meeting, these are all the state code sections regarding the comprehensive plan. The one of great attention this evening would be at the bottom, starting at the bottom of page 7, which is 15.22230, which is a plan to be reviewed at least once every 5 years. And it states, at least once every 5 years, the comprehensive plan shall be reviewed by the local planning commission to determine whether it is advisable to amend the plan. Very simple, simply stated, it is a shall, it isn't a may. So the planning commission is charged with looking at the plan at least once every 5 years to see if it still fits our needs, and if it doesn't, we need to make some changes. If it does, continue on that same path. We have discussed at the planning commission level the comp plan, and I think, and I won't try to speak for all of them, but I think they would concur that in our discussions, the general feeling is the comp plan has served us well. We have yet to really begin to implement that plan, given the fact that it was adopted in kind of in the midst of the downturn in the economy. Now that the economy's picking back up, we're starting to see some rezonings and some implementation of the plan, and I think, certainly from a staff standpoint, we think it will serve us, continue to serve us well. I know looking at the plan, there's some things that I think we need to look at. Certainly, the plan was adopted in 2010. A census was conducted. We have new updated information. Certainly, the demographic section of the plan would need to be looked at. We've had some comments and requests from board members in the past regarding the future land use map and looking at that and amending that to reflect the existing industrial property and the Luckstone mine. We know the mine will be here for at least 40 more years, showing that on the map. And then some things that we've done, we adopted a water and wastewater master plan. So I think there's probably some connectivity from that back to our utilities section that would need to occur. And we're in the midst, you heard a presentation last night regarding our economic development plan, and we have a chapter on economic development trying to work those two things and mesh them together would probably work well for us. And then the last item that I look at is the thoroughfare plan. Going back and looking at that, looking at the projects, looking at giving the, I won't call, well, I don't even know that we have any funding coming on an annual basis really from VDOT to do much of anything, but looking at that and looking at the plan and how we may be able to adjust some of those projects given the bleak financial outlook that comes from our annual contribution from VDOT. So those are like the 5 items initially that I looked at that I thought we would need to go back in and look in the plan. And certainly we can develop a process with the commission to go through and review the chapters. We could, but I think this evening we wanted to hear from both bodies to make sure that as we, staff and the commission, start off down this trail, we're all on the same page as to what we're trying to accomplish and what we want to do. So when we get to the end, we meet at the same place. So I think that's, Ms. Carmack, as chairman of the commission, is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. Also, I would like to nail down a timeline a little bit of when we ideally want to get these changes done. So if we want to have it before, January, I don't think this is going to be a super long process. After attending the economic development, presentation last night, I think a lot of that would be good and very, applicable to perhaps put in here. I think the thoroughfare plan obviously needs some serious updating and taking probably half the projects out. If they're not going to happen anytime in the next 20 years, take them out of there. That's my opinion, as well as probably a look at the utility plan. Mr. Williams and I have discussed water and sewer out to Cumberland may not probably be a really good idea. So we probably can take that out.
That was your fault, Wally. You did that, didn't you?
Well, they got it in Cumberland from Farmville, if I'm not mistaken, by a federal grant or something.
I told you it was Owen's fault. I told you.
I agree with Karen. I think we need to
Fingerprints are all
give a calendar to hold us
Yeah, 'cause-
accountable. One question, should the 2030 vision that we as a board adopted be part of this in any shape, form, or fashion?
Yes.
Yes.
I think so.
One of the things I might suggest, Bill, I'm sorry.
Good.
All right. My understanding from Faith yesterday in her presentation, there is a lot of data that's yet to be shared that we could potentially mine. March, I'd like to see that get to the Planning Commission and us as soon as possible. You can, you can sort through and package it, the way you just did, the sorting of how you would go about updating the comprehensive plan, by the relevant parts. But I'd like to see what that is.
Yeah. And I know
think
a lot of it.
A lot of the data was in the packet, not in the PowerPoint, but the other packet that was provided to us had tons of data in it. Now, I'm not sure that's all the data they could provide, but it had a ton of data in it.
There's a tremendous amount of socioeconomic and demographic data that they've crunched for us that will help us actually in this process. Just kind of insert here, that will be very good. We will certainly be willing to get that out to you as soon as we have all
Because
of that
certain
data.
things that they brought forward yesterday, like when Spencer talked about the expansion of the commerce centers, that's going to affect your future land use map, because right now we've only got one commerce center. So we've asked Spencer to come back and share with us, what that expansion would be. So it's those types of things I think, we need to be looking at and dovetailing, from the study that we're doing.
Yeah, and that in addition, also we've got currently working through VDOT and Timmons Group, who's their contractor, on the route, the 60 Corridor East plan. So that's all those documents have been signed, sealed, and delivered, so they can start work. I know Timmons has been undertaking some basic groundwork on that. They want to provide some build-out scenarios that then roll into the traffic piece for the VDOT portion of the study. They're still scheduled to come to the Planning Commission's October workshop to talk to you about the project. So that is another item that we'll have that can kind of layer in with this plan. either be adopted as a part of the comp plan or amendment to the comp plan.
Yeah, we got the two studies on Route 60 that
Yeah,
encompass the whole.
The one with I've got a draft copy of what the PDC's worked on. I haven't had a chance to go through it cover to cover, but I need to set up a meeting with them to kind of review it. But we've got those along 60 that will kind of play into this whole scenario. And I think a lot of what in the 60 East Corridor study, that's going to help develop some development densities in that corridor, that east area, that will then factor into what type of traffic demands we could experience, but they're going to be realistic densities, not just going in and saying there's 50 acres and all of it's flat. We know that's not the case, so they're going to come up with some realistic densities and build outs for us to assist in that process.
Marge, David, all the things y'all have talked about make a lot of sense, but we've just expanded this thing to well over 6 months.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it's
If we wait
building.
for
I don't
all
think
that
that's
data,
bad. It's
it
just
will be
building.
well over 6 months. So,
Well, from my experience, you can't do it in 6 months anyhow.
That's exactly right. I don't say it's, you got to take it all in one bite, and have everything under your belt. I mean, you could do this on a continuum as you go forward.
No, just in terms of coming to a conclusion to send to y'all, it's going to take a while as we start talking about things.
yeah.
Perhaps we could do some prioritization too then.
There's certain things that, is going to be very obvious to you that you're going to be able to do right away. You remember, anytime you do a corridor study, you always get the short-term recommendations, midterm, and long-term. The short-term things are things that you can do right away and don't take a lot of money. Those are things that are going to jump at you. You're going to have language in the comprehensive plan like Laura talked about where you can do, a couple of sentences to address her concern about, the night sky. 7-Eleven, for example, where it says in there, 7-Eleven will always be a two-lane highway. Well, we know from a 6-year plan that's no longer true, because we know we're looking at 4 lanes like the VDOT 7-Eleven corridor study recommended out to Mannequin Town Ferry Road, that we have 4 lanes from 288. So some of those things, Bill, are fairly obvious, that you can jump on. Things like she talked about in the transportation
No, I
plan.
understand that, but as we start pulling in the economic development plan, and we start looking at the impact of 70% of our citizens are working outside, does our comprehensive plan stop that outflow, or does it encourage it? There are things like that we have to take a look at, and it's going to get a lot more complicated. The transportation plan, if you add up these numbers, just for jollies.
Oh, I did.
Okay.
It's like $1.2 billion.
Yeah, $1.2 billion. Well, that won't work.
I never thought it would, but I will say this, and I'm going to defend the former board on this. They at least took the time for the first time to catalog all the transportation improvements, and I think that was the effort. Now that we've got them, we know certain things won't be done. Your lifetime and my lifetime stacked, it won't be done. It's not going to happen. So as Karen said, you take out those obvious things that are not going to be done. You're going to have some other things in there that were put forward from the corridor study, like on Dorset Road. They're no longer be applicable because we've made decisions about, where Dorset Road is going to be coming out and crossing over 60. It's not going to be going over there and aligning with Batterson. In the corridor study for Route 60, it was going to be cul-de-sac, and the road was recommended to go over to Batterson. So those things, you can conform with, things that have already happened very quickly. But I understand your point, Bill, because there is an issue there with being able to take the economic, data and be able to address, the outflows of the 70% going outside the county. But we've known this for a long time.
Right. The question is, in my mind, we can go on forever with this thing, or in terms of the expectation of the board, in terms of how far and how much of this do you want us to roll in and reprocess into the comprehensive plan? Because there's a lot of data available, and a lot of things have happened and some things haven't happened. The themes are fine as far as I'm concerned with the comprehensive plan, but the underlying pieces need some work to reflect the reality of what's happened in the past few years.
Well, and to reflect the reality of that, we've, had perceptions in the county that always didn't align with, reality. And so I would suggest this. I would get with March. March, you seem to have had, been able to compartmentalize, the different pieces of this as you've got enough structure to it. And then I would start, taking the things that you can do to feed into it that that need to be addressed, for things that are fairly straightforward. And then develop a work plan, and then based on your decision, we think we can do this by a certain date, that we think this is realistic. And then if you look at the other things, like the studies coming on board, then you can take a longer view and then say, this will be, phase 2 or whatever, where you can be looking at. Because obviously, if you don't have the information there, Bill, you can't do anything until you get it.
And I would suggest that one way to tie some of these things together isn't necessarily to take all of that data and put it in the plan, but just make that reference to the existing document. So when we talk about the water and wastewater master plan, we reference that. We may eliminate some of the language that's currently in the comp plan and just make that reference to the existing document. Pull some of the general comments in, but we don't have to try to pull the whole thing in. Same thing with the economic development study when we get to that point. So that we can do things by reference, not necessarily having to go through and rehash everything and create a monster document. We just keep it a little simple, but I think the structure that we have serves us well in moving forward.
Could we also get from the board members, like, if there's anything specific that right off the top of your head that you want either taken out, added, whatever? Can we get a list of those things so we can kind of be looking at that as we're going along? That would be very, very helpful.
I'm perfectly comfortable, Karen, giving you my list. You and I have already talked. I think you pretty much know where I'm at on 4 or 5 things. Why don't each supervisor do that with their planning commissioner?
I have no problem doing that. We need to put a timeline on it. So if you've done yours, great, kudos to you. Thank you for doing that.
You think this can be done before January, before the next board sets? No.
As I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, okay, so you could have new supervisors. You could have some planning commission members that don't get reappointed or just decide, after all these years of service, I'm passing the baton off. So, that can happen, and we all understand that. So I will commit that I'll have my stuff to my planning commission member by the 15th of September. I'm not going to speak for the rest of the board members, but I think we need to put some deadlines on things so you have it, so we can, at least you can understand to March.
Right.
And I guess it gets into me, is we were looking to rewrite, we looking to tweak, or what
I
are we
think
looking to
we
do?
could, how about we have a focus of tweaking some of the major things, major issues that we have by January. We can add the other studies in as they come on board, but as far as tweaking some of the major things, maybe, take a look at the thoroughfare plan and get rid of some of the projects that we know aren't gonna happen. The utility thing with the thing out to Cumberland, take that out. That's not gonna happen. Some of these big things that we can take care of very easily.
Everybody was optimistic.
I think that's reasonable to get done by January.
Yeah, keep that in mind as we prioritize too, what can reasonably.
The thoroughfare plan, I know I sat in with each of you, many of you, and we put that thing together, and then the previous board got it. But I'm not so sure that having some of those on there is not a bad thing, even if it's so far out that none of us in this table will be living when they take place. Because if it's there, what I have learned, if it's there, and somebody goes to develop it, it gets whoa, to Mr. Williams' point, hey, that road's gonna come out right here. So therefore, either you're gonna realign that road, or you're not gonna be able to build what you're looking to do there. So having them there, even if they're maybe pie in the sky, I don't think it's a bad thing, but,
Still a plan.
it's there. I do agree with the water to Cumberland.
It's probably a late night meeting. Seemed like a good idea at the
Probably
time.
ready to put it behind us, probably.
Yeah.
But it seems to me that we have 10 pieces of information that the planning commission needs to at least familiarize itself with, immerse themselves in before we even start writing. I'll just enumerate them, I may have missed some. We got an economic development plan in the oven. It's got a lot of good stuff in it. What I'm suggesting is that we read these things, all of the things I'm going to be talking about, before we jump, before we start writing or scratching or eliminating or adding or whatever. So the first one is economic development plan. The second one is we've got a zoning ordinance we've been working on for years. It's as close as it's ever been to a closure. I know we're not going to bring it to closure in the next weeks or so, but.
Zoning or subdivision?
Subdivision.
What's that?
Zoning or subdivision
Or
ordinance?
both.
Subdivision.
Let me finish the picture, and then we can pick apart. The third piece is the census and everything that we've got out of the census. The fourth one is the CIP things that we've already agreed to. Take a look at it. I'm not saying we take it and swallow it, hook, line, and sinker, but there's a document that exists. A lot of work went into it, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears on staff's part, and on y'all's part, and on our part, to come up with. It's a valid piece of information. The fifth piece is the future land use map. We know that something is wrong with it. It doesn't lead us in the right direction. And there are things missing from it, as David has pointed out repeatedly. When he asks questions about it, he can't find it on the land use map, but it exists. It's a document. A lot of work went into creating it. The sixth thing is that we have a wastewater master plan. Let's not just forget it. The work has been done. The seventh one is the Cobbs Creek and Henrico MOU. Wherever we're going with it, at least it has to be thought of before we jump into doing a comprehensive plan. The eighth one is the thoroughfare plans and the changes in VDOT funding of 6-year plan. That's a major thing that we've got to consider. We're not going to get the money to do the things that we want to do. But we got this master thoroughfare plan, and we got corridor studies saying do this, do this, do this, and we got no money to do it, either local or state. We've got to at least take that into the pot of information. The ninth piece is, somebody mentioned, the Board of Supervisors' vision and the strategic objectives. The 7 objectives in there need to be looked at. And the last one, which is the one we've been kicking around for the last 20 minutes, is individuals on the Planning Commission, individuals on the Board of Supervisors, and certainly citizens, we heard from one tonight, have the right and responsibility to use their God-given judgment to say something is wrong here, or something is right here, or something needs to be added here. We can't just ignore that we are very educated and immersed. And out of that comes 2 things. One is low-hanging fruit. I think that's what you're talking about, Karen. Mm-hmm. After you read all of this stuff and you put your hands into that, you can pull out some of the things that are very obvious. Let's get rid of them or add them because we haven't done a good job in the past of putting them in. The second thing is the one, Bill, you're talking about, is the longer range stuff that we don't want to just throw away arbitrarily, but we may have to set it aside in an appendix and say there's some long-term stuff that we still need to work on, but for the comp plan review, we're going after the low-hanging fruit. So it seems to me that if we all read these 10 documents and then sat in a room and started to brainstorm, we could identify what needs to be done. These things will pop out just like it's been popping out, but with more discipline. These things will pop out at us. These things will be dealt with now. And these things we need to set aside for the time being. Thank you for hearing me out.
Carson, I think you're absolutely right. Every one of those documents that you reference are important. And it goes back to, when do we get those documents? So it goes back to, yeah, we are going to read them, but we got to get them. As soon as we get them, then the Planning Commission, us, can take a look at it and figure out what we're going to do with it. One of the things, I said last night, you remember Spencer said, we need to have more commerce in the UDAs. That's another thing. That's another nugget that we can look at. Going back to your point also, Carson, about the traffic situation in VDOT and the 6-year funds not being sufficient. We know, as I said last night, we're going to need 6 lanes on Route 60 as soon as 2017 from Juice Ferry Road into Chesterland. If we don't, levels of service go to E and F in the morning and evening. You're already seeing it now. Anybody that's on Route 60 at 5:30 and you're trying to cross, for example, go over to Tractor Supply if you're going east in town. You can't do it. You're waiting literally minutes to try to get across because of the stream of traffic. So we're going to have to figure out a way, knowing that we're not going to get those 6 lanes, on how we're going to economize the traffic in such a way that, you know, we can move traffic as efficiently as possible without those 6 lanes. So it goes back to, you know, access management standards. You know, Spencer talked about it yesterday. He says, well, you know, it's good that we have them on Route 60, but then he said, you know, maybe all on some of the minor arterial roads and the collector roads, you know, there may be a little problematic. So that's something, you know, I'm anxious to get more information from Spencer and y'all take a look at. But we've got to figure it out, as Carson said, how we're going to do this thing called Powhatan. And it's going to require all those different things that Carson said. He's absolutely right, looking at those. Will this be a quick one? No. The comprehensive plan was never, in my opinion, meant to be something that you just put up on the shelf. This is a living document. It's just like a business plan. You're always going back to it and updating it as you get more information.
I think you're absolutely right. And hence the idea of low-hanging fruit. What can we do right now to fix the most egregious issues that we're struggling with? And for those who are going to take huge influxes of money, study, time, we set them aside, prioritize them over time, and start to chip away at it. But I think David's right. It's not a plan that's finished. And we make the mistake sometimes of thinking it's a plan that's finished. It's a rolling thunder plan. And we haven't done that simply because we get so doggone busy. Staff gets busy, the planning commission gets busy, we get busy putting out fires. So we set this aside and all of a sudden it's 5 years. Who would have thought that the comp plan is 5 years old already? It took us 10 or 11 years to get it done.
But we also have to realize that, I'm not going to make excuses here, but there is only limited staff too. So if we pile stuff on staff, and, you know, and I'm not picking on us or kicking us under the table. Some things we probably should have put to bed, we should put to bed, so March can say, that's done, let's, you know, move on to this. So, you know, I have no, I agree 100% with what you said and what you said. We also got to be realistic that there's only, you know, one March, one Ed, you know, one Sean, and have to be realistic with their expectations of when data will come, and how much they can mine for us. You know, and I have a tremendous amount of confidence in the Planning Commission. We give it to you, give you the document that you would be able to massage and bring it forward and help with the low-hanging fruit.
Most of this data is already available in one form or the other. I'm not arguing with you. I certainly don't want to reinvent the wheel. I certainly want to pile on more on staff. No, it's not what I'm saying. But just think about it. The ED plan we've hired out.
Exactly.
The zoning ordinance, we've been working our butts off, y'all and us, for months after, and staff, and months after months. It's that close. The census is done. It's available. It's online. The CIP is done. The future land use map is a thing. It exists already. We need to look at it hard and determine whether it represents what we really want or not. The wastewater master plan is fundamentally done. The Cobb's Creek agreement and the Henrico MOU, we're in the process of negotiation, but it's well on the way. We've been working on it now for 8 years. The thoroughfare plans are done. I know they have to be modified. The VDOT funding stream, we've got an idea that it's going to be less than $100,000 a year, so just forget it. It's essentially backing us into a corner. The Board of Supervisors vision and the strategic objectives is done and available online. The only piece that seems to be not absolutely crystal clear is the one that David, you and Karen are talking about, where each one of us identifies the low-hanging fruit, and maybe some long-term stuff is really stuck in our craw, and feed it to the Planning Commission so they've got a package from the 10 of us with staff's input that says, here are the things that really bother us.
Yeah.
And there may be one person saying it. That's something we have to discuss. If it's only one person saying it, it goes to number 10 in the prioritization of 1 to 10.
Right.
But if 10 of us say we got a major problem, then we know that the staff needs to focus and Planning Commission needs to focus on that one as far as possible, if it can be done low-hanging fruit. I'm making this up as I'm going, but.
No, but I think that's perfect, and I do believe we can get that done by January. I mean, I think that's very reasonable. I mean, it's,
Spencer's going to give us, I asked Spencer, I
Don't
said,
think we can
Spencer,
get that by January?
show me, where
have
you
little
think we
things.
need to, expand the commerce zones. He said he was going to do that. Staff's not going to have to do that. Technology zone. Again, I asked Spencer, I said, Spencer, tell us, where are we best suited, with the infrastructure that we need to have the technology zone. He's going to do that. So I'm not looking for staff to go out there and start collecting data, analyze it, and regurgitate it to the planning commission and the board of supervisors. I think you got plenty to work with now, and it's more of us making decisions from what's already going to be presented to us.
Mark, how far did it, your meeting, planning commission meeting on the 6th of October, did you anticipate that being a full calendar that evening for the planning commission?
Well, we'll have a couple of public hearings. I know we'll have at least one, well, maybe. But from a workshop standpoint, we were going to bring Timmons in to start let them give an overview of where they are and what the process is they're going to undertake on Route 60. But certainly we can begin. So what I was going to suggest is at that meeting, we take an opportunity to, if we can get a commitment from everybody to put their pet peeves together, if you will, have that list together, and then staff can work on beginning looking at a kind of a calendar. So I think if we have pet peeve issues, we can probably begin to address some, and the majority of those, depending upon how extensive it is, maybe by January. But some of these other things, knowing that there are 3 or 4 of us to do all of this, it's going to, so we need to put together kind of a calendar that looks at our workload in addition to what we already know what's going on, with addition to this. And one way we could do it is to look at some of the, so if we've got these 5 things, let's just say, we could look at trying to tackle 2 a month at a workshop. And if it's a big issue, say the future land use map, we think that's going to take up, we can do that one that time. But we can come back to y'all, to the planning commission in October with kind of a schedule, and if we get those 10 things before then, we can incorporate all that. But I'm in the back of my mind, I enjoy the enthusiasm of January, but I'm also thinking about all the stuff we've got going on now and trying to layer this in with, a staff of 4. So just being cognizant of that.
I just want to make one comment. If the planning commission members and the board members don't tell March until September 27th what they want, we can't come back on October 6th with a plan. So
Right.
it depends on the
Sooner
date
than
that
later.
you tell us, that you will tell us what you want. Once we know that date, then March can tell you when you can come back with a plan. Sorry to
No. But I think we can work this and we can get this done. I just need to have an idea of the scope of what we're about ready to get into. I can't commit to January and then suddenly we've got 1,000 things we need to do. So that's kind of, we as staff need to kind of get a feel of what those issues are, so then we can put something together for you.
No, let me try a modification with that. Karen, would you be willing to work with March and Pat, if she wants to be part of it, to put together a preliminary calendar of how we might do this, short-term and long-term?
absolutely.
With a
yeah.
clear understanding that we're not cutting it in stone, because we're going to modify it immediately and saying, oh, the deeper we get into this, the more we realize it's going to take to March. Oh, it may take to, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But if we don't start with some effort to put, this thing will drag on for 11 years like it did before. And none of us want that.
Mr. Tucker, with all due respect, what I heard Mrs. Carmack say and Mr. Williams say is and Mr. Melton say is if the Board of Supervisors will let their planning commission members know what they want, we get that to staff, we have better information then to put together a calendar for you and a plan. So that's what we as staff are asking. Would you please do that step that Ms. Carmack and Mr. Williams suggested? Get us your information. Tell us when you'll have that to us by, so we know that we have it all. And once we know that date, we can tell you when we'll have a plan back. That's
I think what you're looking for, Pat, is a date to have it to the planning commissioners where it can be compiled and given to March. I can do mine tomorrow. I'll be, because this is not a new conversation with my planning commissioner.
Well, again, I commit to the 15th. I'll roll my sleeves up and get my stuff. Mr. Cox.
Okay, you said that.
Bill.
15th of September?
15th of this month, so that gives me
14 days.
14 days to finish it and get it to him.
David, what I want
Let everybody eat.
is all of the supervisors on a board. So if 3 supervisors or more identify the same item, then that goes into group 1. That's what we've got to work on. If only one supervisor chooses one thing, then
It would go.
then that goes to the back of the line. And that will allow us to prioritize things in a hurry.
Mine, I can tell you right now, most of mine are going to be short-term, immediate, things that we can do today. The things that are going to be longer-term are the things Carson and I were talking about, are these studies that are going to be coming in. Because right now, I don't know what I don't know. Until I get those reports, I'm not going to know what, if anything, that I need to do.
But you do know the low-hanging fruit.
So.
The low-hanging fruit.
And that's all
Is what I've
I'm
already talked
discussing, is the low-hanging
That's the
fruit.
thing. That's why I'm saying, Billy,
Yeah. This
Yeah.
isn't like-
I think you could do it in a week, couldn't you?
Well, I could, but I need to be realistic with all that's going on. I mean, I could have mine to him no later than the 15th. I'll probably sit over the weekend on Sunday evening and do it.
So can we get a commitment of the 15th from everybody?
I'm good. I can do it sooner.
And that
but
way, that
whatever's-
gives us time to assimilate it, get it all together, and then have that ready for the PC in October. Shake,
Carson?
silence is agreeance.
I can do it.
So we're committed to the 15th. We'll make sure we get communicated to Mr. Hodge.
Yes. So-
My whole point is I would like to get something done.
Yes.
With this group, that's all.
Oh, I agree 100%.
That's all I'm saying. I think it would be
And I
nice to
like
get something.
Mr. Cox's proposal. If
Yeah.
3 guys, if you got,
Yeah.
if 3 you got it, that needs to be priority 1. If it's 1 guy, it should be priority number.
Well, let me go back to Mr. Cox for a second. Mr. Cox, what if somebody has a good idea, and he's the only one that listed it, but y'all say, he's really got a good idea? Are you going to throw it out, or are you going to say, I think we need to do it?
Well, they're the planners.
We're going to look at,
That was good.
we're going to look at what has the most interest to the Board of Supervisors.
I tell you
That's-
what, I might have to come to some planning commission meetings then, because I can see very easily that Bill could have a good idea that I didn't think of, and it's low-hanging fruit, and y'all say, well, I'm sorry, according to the matrix here, you don't have the votes, he's out of there.
Well, I have a level of trust in the common sense process of the group that they would probably say, you know what? And they may have a better idea than any of us, because they're the planners and they're ones that.
We're not limited to just your ideas, sir.
Didn't say you were. That's my whole point. I just said, if Bill has a good idea, and he's the only one that came up with that idea, and nobody else thought about it, I want him moved to the front.
We're getting ready to close.
Oh, yeah, I was like, we gotta wrap it up.
We do have a public comment period we need to have. So what we have is a commitment that we will have to our planning commission members by the 15th, kind of our low-hanging fruit, or issues that concern us. And then from there, they will get it to you, March, and then prioritize the calendar kind of on how to move the thing forward. Good. Any other comments or questions from the supervisors? How about any planning commission members? Anything y'all want to say? Only thing I say is thank you for what y'all do. Having done it for 12 years, sometimes you get frustrated with the board, which rightly probably deserves some time. But we do appreciate all y'all do as the planners. So thank you. At this time, we'll have
Planning commission, boys.
do we have any, we'll have another public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public comment period. Do we have any county administrator comments?
police scanner.
Any board comments?
Good night.
Calm down.
Can I get an adjournment? A motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion, meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for your time. Y'all have a good night.